Honorable Breytenbach.
Thank you, Chair. Before I start, I will declare that I have known Advocate Betoy for many, many, many years. We work together at the NPA, so I think everybody knows that I know her. So, Advocate Betoy, there are currently prosecutors in senior positions in the NPA who aided and abetted state capture within the NPA. And not only are they still there, but they continue to exercise considerable influence within the organization. You'll agree with me, I think, that senior members of the NPA had an ethical and moral duty to oppose state capture of the NPA. And they failed. You know who they are, I know who they are. What have you done? What steps have you taken to rid the organization of these toxic bad influences?
So, let me firstly respond by saying that from the very outset of my term, it has been a priority to do exactly that, to ensure that there's consequences for prosecutors who were errant and who did not uphold their oath of office and constitutional mandate, acted contrary to that. A number of the prosecutors that are implicated are currently facing disciplinary processes. And I do want to say here again that it is a sense of immense frustration as a national director that these processes take so long. The NDPP cannot interfere in labor processes. And it is extremely frustrating that those disciplinary processes have taken a year or 2 years maybe now, and they're still not complete. And there are various reasons for it. So I can't take that any further. I certainly hope we are doing what we can. I've spoken to the evidence leader to try to fast-track those processes. But, of course, labor manages those processes. It is a frustrating thing for the national director not to be able to, I mean, you can't get involved in those processes. You're also aware that Advocate Chauke has been suspended, and there is an inquiry into his fitness to hold office that will commence on the 17th of November. That's on Monday. I did recommend to the President just over 2 years ago that he be suspended, and now the inquiry is proceeding.
Thank you. I'll come back to, well, let me do it now, because you've mentioned Advocate Chauke. So you asked the President 2 years or so ago to suspend him, obviously for good reason. It took the President 2 years to do so. Do you still hold the view that you articulated earlier that, that the executive supports the National Prosecuting Authority and that they have, you have unfettered support and no influence or interference?
Well, look, what I do know is that after the President received my recommendation, he requested another legal opinion, or his office. I'm not sure it was him or his office. But I know that another opinion was sought, and the matter was between the President's office and the Department of Justice. What I can say is when the current minister took office, I would say it was less than a month that she was in office that she got this matter back on track.
So are you suggesting that the previous minister was less than keen?
No, I'm not saying he was less than keen. I'm saying there was a delay in that time,
well,
for whatever the reason is, but there was certainly a delay.
The conclusion is ineluctable then that it's the previous minister who was the holdup. If you don't want to say it, it's fine, I will. And I'm saying it.
I don't have any reason to come to that conclusion.
Yeah, right. Yes, but Chauke is not the only person that we're both talking about now. There are the prosecutors who insisted on, for instance, the Cato Manor prosecutions in the face of no evidence whatsoever. Nothing has happened to them yet. The disciplinaries are we're told, in the Post. And they're not the only ones either, there are more.
Sorry, Chair, through you, I should have completed my answer. The IDAC is also investigating these matters, and there has been considerable progress in the matters. So I don't want to say anything more at this stage.
So what would your view be with regards to the state capture of the National Prosecuting Authority and DPPs and senior ones at that, who took the view at the time, openly, that they wanted to keep their jobs and they weren't prepared to, as they said, make waves, not prepared to oppose the capture of the MPA? What would your view of that be?
No prosecutor should do that. It goes against your oath of office, your mandate to agree and go along with supervisors. It's difficult who are acting in a way that is not in line with their oath of office. And in my regional visits to prosecutors recently, I've made it very clear to them that if you are in that situation where your superiors, the leadership, is doing something that goes against your oath of office, you must respectfully disagree to go along with something that goes against your oath of office. Respectfully. But you do not go along with it because it's your supervisor that is influencing you. It's unacceptable for a prosecutor. It goes against all our code of conduct, our policies. It, in fact, could amount to a crime.
Well, I want to suggest that you look closer to home and look in the ranks of your deputy national directors. You'll find who I'm talking about. I'm sure you know who I am talking about. Don't, I'm happy to tell you. Do you know?
I know who you're referring to, yes.
Good. So look closer to home.
I'm not aware of evidence against him.
Oh. Okay. Well, I'm telling you, he said it to me. And to his entire management committee, several times.
Then I would say it's unacceptable.
I see. But he's the acting national director in Rodney de Kock's place. Continues to live a charmed life.
I beg your pardon?
Continues to live a charmed life.
I'm not sure. I was wondering if that was a question.
It's a statement.
I'm not sure what he said to his management, but he's given me no reason to suspect that he is not a person whose integrity I cannot trust.
Well, let me help you with that. He told his management and myself more than once, I need this job, I'm not making waves. Did you get that?
That's unacceptable conduct.
Good. Now, you say that prosecutor-led investigations have increased the successes of prosecutions. Is that correct? Did I understand you correctly?
We were talking about prosecutor-guided investigations.
Yeah, same thing.
PLI is the IDAC model.
Will you agree with me that it only has the potential to increase successes if you have all the components that you need for it? So you need a capable police and DPCI.
I did make that point.
Yeah, which we don't have.
I agree completely.
Yeah, we don't have. You
There are a number of...
You need a capable NPA, which we don't fully have. You need access to proper resources, which includes access to serious forensic capabilities, accounting forensics, cyber forensics, and other technological resources, which we currently do not have or do not have fully. But what you need most importantly is you need competent, experienced, and confident prosecutors who are able to confidently take cases to court in the face of strong opposition of defense counsel, who have no such restraints and currently have a free ride. Would you agree with that?
I definitely agree with that, but I want to add to that I agree with everything that the Honorable Breytenbach has said with regard to capacities, capabilities that's needed to deal with these complex matters. we did a capability review in the NPA, and we found that we have extremely competent, skilled prosecutors who can prosecute, should I say, traditional crimes extremely well.
Yes.
But the reality is that with complexity of corruption, cybercrime, we do lack the skills. And that's one of the reasons why we have also been employing the use of Section 38 Counsel to fill the gap that we have precisely for that, whilst we try to build capacity and capability in these fields within the NPA. And there's a lot of initiatives that are happening to deal precisely with that.
Well, I'm relieved to hear that. So I agree with you fully that the capacity to prosecute, again, without being disparaging, prosecute traditional crimes is there. And let there be no misunderstanding. I think there are thousands of prosecutors who go to work every day and do their best under very trying circumstances. That includes the police and everybody else. It's not a lack of trying. It's a lack of capacity. And this kind of capacity is not learnt in a book. You can't get a note from Justice College on it.
I agree with you. It comes with a certain level of training, but experience as well in these types of cases. And the sad reality is that the prosecution, the NPA was not prosecuting these complex matters before 2019. So the capacity was not, in fact, there was a deliberate attempt not to deal with many of these matters. One of the things I did when I took office was to say that the SCCU, we need to do an audit of all the cases in the SCCU to remove the cases that should go to the normal regional courts, so that the SCCU focuses on the types of cases that it was meant to focus on. And so that was part of the process. But of course, when you have prosecutors that are not prosecuting these matters, then it comes with experience. So we've been trying to actually fill that gap in capacity through various ways.
Well, the SCCU was never instituted or set up to prosecute traditional cases.
That's
Never been part of its mandate. So if they were doing that, there should be consequences for those prosecutors who allowed that to happen. You switched off your mic.
I'm thinking.
No, okay.
It was just that it was the culture in the NPA at the time where, you know, prosecutors also chasing figures and statistics for Parliament also leads them to take, because you've got to take more, produce more numbers, the criteria, intake criteria is different. So there were a whole range of reasons why prosecutors were not being unethical, but they were doing the easy cases, let's put it that way. And so one of the things I did say is that even to Parliament, that the SCCU numbers might drop. And that is because we are now focusing on the more complex cases. But I agree completely that, you know, the SCCU was never intended to be doing those kinds of cases. But that is a lot of what it ended up doing, which was the result, which was the cause for the audit when I took office.
Yeah, well, the SCCU was set up to be exactly that, a specialized commercial crime unit. And doing ordinary cases hardly requires a specialist prosecutor. So they should be marched out and shot at dawn for allowing that to happen. It's a disgrace. So you and I differ somewhat on our interpretation of the Glenister 2 judgment. And you hold the view, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that, that IDAC is independent, sufficiently.
Adequately independent, that's correct.
Okay, yeah. So you were around when the Scorpions were disbanded. And you know what the gutting result of that was. For many people, for prosecutors, for policemen, for the NPA. And it was a day of great celebration for the corrupt and for the connected. And the reason they were disbanded was they went after particularly politicians, correct?
Including politicians, yes.
Yeah. And they were disbanded with relative ease, 51% of votes in the National Assembly. You remember?
I can't remember the percentage.
51, well, that's all they needed was 51%.
Yes, I agree.
And with IDAC, where it's currently housed within the NPA, will you agree with me that all that's required is again 51%. So what kind of protection is that? What kind of independence is that? What security of tenure is that?
Why I raised the issue and said that the one benefit of Chapter 9 institution is the fact that a two-thirds majority is required. And I think that that should be an amendment that would require a two-thirds majority for removal of an IDAC head or a national director, which will actually address that, I agree, that point.
And you'll agree with me then that the independence that was envisaged by the Constitutional Court is not satisfied with IDAC as it currently is situated. Because of that reason, can we disband it tomorrow?
I don't agree, because if we look at the Glenister decision in terms of what exactly adequate independence means, I think as far as the NPA is concerned, I mentioned earlier, there are very, very few prosecuting authorities in the world where they are completely separated from the executive. Most of them have some line of reporting to the executive. And so that is why I say it's adequate independence. The issue of the operational and financial independence is another matter. But if you look at the STIRS criteria that Glenister dealt with, specialized, we are actually now making sure that we get the specialist capacities. Now
One day in the future, yeah?
Well, we have to build it up, and we're trying to be innovative in terms of how we bring in the specialized capacities, whilst we're trying to address the scourge of corruption.
The fact is you don't have it today.
Pardon me?
The fact is you don't have it today.
No, we have a number of prosecutors in the IDAC that can do this job, and we are also hiring Section 38 lawyers to ensure that we boost this capacity to do these cases. So in that sense, we do have the capacity to deal with the cases, specialized, whether it's internal or external. Trained is, we are, many of them, because I say they have the capacity and the skills, means they are in fact trained, but we don't have enough of them. And so we need to get more of them. Independence, I think, as I've explained it, there's adequate independence. You're never going to get prosecuting authorities, or very few in the world, that are completely outside of the executive. So one way of addressing your challenge is to amend the legislation to make it a two-thirds majority, which will help with the security of tenure and enhance the independence. And then resources is the last criteria. And there again, we have, we've been getting support from the government in terms of budget to get the resources that we need. But there's still specialized resources that come very expensive, but we are doing what we can to get the necessary resources into the IDAC. And to emphasize that, again, the IDAC has a number of cases already in court, enrolled, which shows that they are getting cases to court. We must not forget that it's only been it's a year since the IDAC became permanent, and it's post-COVID, it's about 4 years since we really started turning things around in the NPA. And so what they've achieved in those 4.5 years maybe, and in the last year, I agree. I, as a national director, am also not, is the one disappointment that we couldn't move faster in this regard. But there were so many reasons why we're not able to, but there are a number of cases, and I want to emphasize, as I mentioned earlier, some of the key Gupta lieutenants are in court. We're one of the few jurisdictions in the world where we have CEOs, CFOs, ex-presidents, members of boards that are in court at the moment facing various charges. And so, I can name the Gupta lieutenants, but I don't think it's necessary. They're already in court. But there's a number of really important cases that are in court that need to move quicker through the system.
You'll forgive me if my comment to that is we need to count the convictions.
Can I respond to that?
Yes, please do.
Once a case is enrolled, rule of law does not end at an enrollment. A strong rule of law means that cases move quickly through a system to finalization. And if you look at all of the challenges in the system about why these cases simply do not move through the system, and I'm sure you, Honorable Breytenbach, will be well aware of these. the deliberate delaying tactics, the fact that the judiciary has to take a stronger role in moving cases swiftly through the system. I had the opportunity in the ceremonial sitting of Judge Zondo's retirement as well as Judge Madlanga's retirement at the Constitutional Court. And I raised the issue, maybe at one or both of them, about what is the role of the judiciary as the third arm of government to implement government priorities in line with the sacrosanct independent mandate of the judiciary. It is really important. So if corruption is a government priority, what is the role of the judiciary in ensuring that these matters move swiftly through the court system? So I think that's something that needs to be addressed. I'm not saying it's only the judiciary is responsible for this.
I agree with you that they have a responsibility.
But an important responsibility to get cases moving quickly through the system. And then hopefully we will say we have finalized cases, whether they are convictions, acquittals. But I agree, it simply takes too long in the system.
So then part of the issue remains that you also need well-trained and confident judges who are not allowed, don't allow themselves to be browbeaten by the histrionics of senior counsel. Yeah. So I'm going to save some time for the Honourable Klopper, so I'm going to leave some of my questions out. We'll have to discuss the STIRS criteria a little more later, not in this forum. You said that there's no political interference, and we're so lucky to have an executive that respects the independence of the NPA. And I already referred to Chauke and the time it took for him to be suspended. In my view, that is a very demonstrable lack of support for your national director. But you don't have to answer that. Would you agree that the closing down of the DSO was politically motivated?
Well, it's certainly something that went through the process and the Scorpions were killed in Parliament.
Yeah. Would you agree that the firing of Vusi Pikoli was politically motivated?
I know that politicians were involved in that process.
Would you agree that the abysmal failure of the system, with no consequences, mind you, that allowed the Guptas to leave this country at all, was politically motivated?
I was not here when they left the country, and I'm not aware of the details, but it's highly suspicious about how they were allowed to get out of the country.
But no consequences?
Apparently so.
Well, I'm asking you. You're the national director, and the NPA was in...
Sorry, I didn't understand your question.
Yeah.
No consequences for whom,
No,
with
whoever
respect?
was in charge of that matter, they were obviously a flight risk.
My apologies, I'm not understanding.
They were obviously a flight risk. Why were they just allowed to wander around and do as they please?
That I understand. They were probably failures at various levels by various institutions that allowed that to happen.
And then this you probably won't agree with, but I'm putting it to you, I state it as my view, that the constant diminishing of the budget of the police and the NPA is indirect political interference to ensure that no one is put into an orange overall.
Generally, I would agree with that statement. If that is what happens, then that is a form of ensuring that entities can't do what they need to do. But I do want to emphasize that in my term of office, we have received the budget that we require. We still need a lot more resources moving forward, particularly if the operational and financial independence kicks in. So I do want to emphasize that we have got the financial support that we need, but into the future, with the complexity of crimes and the need for additional specialized training, security of prosecutors, etc., there's going to be a need for more for more budget.
So the Justice Portfolio Committee can relax. We don't have to fight for budget for you anymore. You're sorted.
Well, just for this year we're sorted, but not for the outer years.
Thank you, Chair. I have nothing further.
Nothing. Sure, I would do honestly.